Well, in October of this year, it marked 35 years since that famous game called Prince of Persia, which was an icon and continues to have 2 versions released to this day. So I think it's a good opportunity to remember that for many of us, that video game is considered the first motion capture used in a video game. Later, of course, it started to be used for film and a lot of other things, but let's say that video game and that work marked a reference for the first motion capture. Nowadays, there's no need to clarify what mocap or motion capture is, because practically everyone knows or has seen somewhere how this has been used. Today we have several ways to capture motion, with suits with sensors, more cameras in different places where we are performing the action, and also with a simple video camera. But in reality, the first motion capture was not done on a person, and not even when the camera was invented, but rather it was done by a photographer, Edward Muybridge, who between 1872 and 1878, this photographer from the USA wanted to investigate whether, during a horse's gallop, all 4 legs were ever suspended in the air. And so he came up with the idea of taking a series of photographs, a sequence of images, to detect that part of the movement, and in that way, he was able to confirm that during a horse's gallop, there is a moment when the horse has all 4 legs in the air. That work was very important because it would lay the foundations for filmmaking later on. Today we will remember the work of Jordan Mechner. What this screenwriter, programmer and game creator did was take his camera, his video recorder, and film his brother dressed in the same clothes that the character would wear in the video game, and film the different actions that the character would perform in the video game. Why did he do this? Because he wanted a lot of realism in the character. In other words, he wanted the movements to not be mechanical or standard, but rather realistic movements of a person. Especially to create that sense of anguish, for example, when falling onto spikes or that kind of thing. In other words, he already had in mind that he wanted the character to have realistic animation. So that's why he resorted to this method. This method had actually been used for some time. It was called rotoscoping and it is still used today. Rotoscoping is, in other words, isolating person within the video and tracing, let's say, their movements to transfer them to another character. The game was released in 1989, as I mentioned. It was for Apple computers. And finally in 2003, Ubisoft would release its own version. The story of the game centers on a refugee who falls in love with a princess and is imprisoned by her evil vizier father named Shafar, who then takes over the kingdom and gives the princess 1 hour to agree to marry him or die. In those 60 minutes, players must escape from a laundry maze of 12 levels with deadly traps, puzzles and guards, where there is always the constant danger of dying in all these attempts. What Mechner says is that he wanted the character not to look like a sprite. Sprite referred to the graphic of the little person or the different graphics in the video game. He wanted it not only to look like an animated sprite, to look truly like a person, as if we were the ones risking dying in each attempt or getting hurt. To help create that character, Mechner recruited his brother David, who was then 15 years old, dressed him in white to contrast with the environment, and had him run and jump around the parking lot of Ritter Jed 1, a high school near their family home in Chappaqua, New York. Jordan always had the habit of involving his family in all his projects, so he not only asked his brother to participate but also asked his father to compose the music for the video game. Jordan was actually a psychology student and a lover of animation, but he was not trained to do this animation, which is why he turned to a computer and this rotoscoping method to recreate all the movements he needed. And well, since then, there are many video games that use motion capture. One of my favorites is Hellblade, which for me also changed everything. Let's say the style and all the things of thinking about this from my point of view. It not only uses motion capture, but also did a scan of an actress, who is the protagonist of the video game, and they use all her facial animation to give greater drama to each scene she has to perform. For me, this is one of the video games that makes the most of motion capture. This is, as I say, from my point of view, 2009. But well, the idea of this video was not so much to talk about the video game, but to take advantage of the fact that we have the videos of Jordan that are on his own channel, though, where the captures he made of his brother with his camcorder are all over the internet. And obviously what caught my attention the most was that, although at that time the camera was used for rotoscoping, several years have passed and now the camera is used directly to capture motion. In other words, we no longer just capture the movement of the person from the camera's angle, but we capture all the movement and can use it in a 3D animation and view it from any perspective. So, one of the things I wanted to do was take advantage of having these videos, put them in the beta version of Meshcapade and see how these animations look. More than anything, so that it serves as a kind of tribute to motion capture. Now much more refined to that vision this person had of using these methods for their video game and animations. So we are going to do a little test, some of them, and see how they turn out.